You there in the middle. Stand up, please. Identify yourself, Doctor.
Oh, my name is Dennis Lindsay. My home is in Woolloomooloo, New South Wales, Australia.
What are you trying to do, sing Boola Boola?
Woolloomooloo is a suburb of Sydney.
Can it be spelled?
W-O-O-L-L-O-M-O-O-L-O-O.
This is the continent of Australia, often referred to as the land down under, home to the most unusual landmarks that have captured people's imagination and just as unusual wildlife. Some cute, but clearly dangerous. Currently home to approximately 27 million people in 2024, but if we go back 100 years to 1924, the population was about 5,800,000. That would only go up by 2 million over the next 2 decades. My point is, 100 years ago, there weren't many Australians on this planet. 12,000 kilometres across the Pacific is Hollywood, California. In the early part of the 20th century, many film studios were built, and Hollywood quickly became the filmmaking centre of the world, with the biggest movie stars on the planet. Some of the biggest American actors of the time were Buster Keaton, Douglas Fairbanks, Gary Cooper, John Wayne, Humphrey Bogart, and W.C. Fields.
What kind of a dog is he? He's a cross between a Manchurian yak and an Australian dingo. That's funny.
Some actors were British, like Charlie Chaplin, Boris Karloff, Laurence Olivier, Bob Hope, Leslie Howard, Vivien Leigh, and Olivia de Havilland. Well, she was actually Japanese. Seriously, look it up. Basil Rathbone was South African and Greta Garbo, Swedish.
I want to be alone.
Okay, that was obvious. But were any actors from this period Australian? Had Americans even heard of Australia back then? Of all the Golden Age movies I've seen, I've never really heard of many Australian actors or filmmakers during that period. They must have been somewhere. Maybe we were so few and far between, and not to mention far away, to be a presence in Hollywood. The fact that Australia was so far away was often the butt of jokes back then.
Don, how did you come? By way of Australia?
Hello, Cos. Excuse me.
Well, what do I owe you?
Some ho, some Conchita, some nice, some Lasha.
What, from Africa to here? $1.85? That's an outrage. I told her not to take me through Australia. You know it's all ripped up. You should have come right up to Lincoln Boulevard. Where do you come with that stuff?
Chandler left Singapore 3 months ago. How about Australia?
Well, I can try Sydney. He was always crazy about the races.
Okay, but rush it.
In this episode of the popular quiz program You Bet Your Life, the host, Groucho Marx, is surprised to find out where his contestant comes from.
You're easily amused, aren't you?
Well, Australians are.
Oh. You're from Australia?
Yes, I'm from Australia.
Oh, I didn't know that. How about you? Would you say that you're a typical Australian man?
I guess I would.
Well, that gives me a pretty clear picture of Australia. The women are beautiful and the men are half bald with red mustaches.
Fast forward about 3 decades and Australians start to quietly invade Hollywood.
2:20. You better get started.
But there were no real Aussie movie stars, except this guy. Bankable American actors would get the roles of Australian characters in film.
Not a wuss!
Some were okay.
You know, as part of our thing about current America, we do a profile on a different serial killer.
Technically mass murder.
Some were absolutely spot on.
The dingoes got my baby!
What?
And we even got to see an Australian Michael Caine.
G'day, Nikos. How's it going, sport? Good on you, cobber. Chips O'Toole. Hotels and oil from down under.
But eventually, more and more Aussies would become movie stars. Actors like Chris Hemsworth, Hugh Jackman, Cate Blanchett, Margot Robbie, Heath Ledger, Nicole Kidman.
Does anyone remember when American movies were cast with American actors? That seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
Have we become so weak and effete that no defense is mounted against an Aussie horde that flawlessly mimics our American accent and then takes jobs that rightfully belong to Billy Bob Thornton?
But getting back to American actors doing Aussie accents, well, it wasn't always great, particularly in the Golden Age.
Senor Dobbs.
Fred C. Dobbs, that's right.
Citizen of Australia.
Australia, right.
Your immunization record, por favor.
My what?
843.
Tell me, once you secure at ID 100, what would you be doing, matey?
Keeping a date at 1801.
With the base efficiency expert, of course.
Of course.
Stone the crows.
What are you doing with my coat, mate? What are you talking about? It's mine. Are you pushing me, you clown Canadian? It's mine, you literate Aussie son of a...
On the question of whether there were Australians working in Hollywood during the Golden Age, I decided to do some research into this. Just let the music go. Fading out. And it's me. Hi. Yes, research I did. There were Australians in Hollywood during the Golden Age. And I'm going to raise my beer to them. It took me so long to set up that the head's gone. So the first Australian that I raise my beer to is J.P. McGowan. Yeah. Now, this man does deserve applause because this was very, very interesting what I found out about him. So, J.P. McGowan, also known as Jack McGowan, was born in Terrawee, South Australia in 1880. Now, he served in the Boer War as a special dispatch rider. After the war, he was involved in an exhibition at the 1904 World Fair in St. Louis, or Louis. They would reenact battles of the Boer War there, and apparently it was very entertaining, and I think he got the acting bug, so he started doing acting, and he ended up at KLM Studios that made very stunt-oriented movies. So Jack worked for KLM as an actor, and the studio gave him the nickname the Railroad Man. And then he ended up going from that to directing. So he was a director. He directed these, they used to have two-reelers, short films, serials back in those days, which are like TV series. Now Jack directed a very popular film series called The Hazards of Helen. He directed 54 episodes of this series, and it starred Helen Holmes, who he married, so that was his wife eventually, and it was basically about a telegraph operator called Helen who repeatedly found herself in dramatic cliffhanging situations. A lot of the episodes are lost, but you can see bits and pieces on YouTube. He kind of created the woman tied to the train tracks sort of silent movie image that many of you may have seen. It was very dangerous work, and I think the dangerous nature of making those type of movies was a bit of a strain on his marriage with Helen, and they eventually divorced. She got injured quite a bit. There's a rumor that she lost her finger, and Jack also got injured. He directed The Hurricane Express, which starred John Wayne. That was before John Wayne was a huge star.
Too bad the old heat's out of date. What do you mean out of date? You're talking about the Hurricane Express, the fastest train in the country, the fastest train in any country.
And the rest of the movies throughout the 1930s were mainly B movies, they were mainly westerns, and Jack was acting in those.
Well, if that ain't just like her. Heading right smack into trouble. What's wrong?
Arnold's having wrestler trouble. Red and me's going up to help him out.
Good for you. Your jobs will be waiting for you.
That's fine, thanks, Buck.
Take care of yourself.
He was the first Australian lifetime member of the Screen Directors Guild. So he's pretty important. And if you want to know more about him, there is a book called Hollywood's First Australian, The Adventurous Life of J.P. McGowan. There's a picture of a woman getting tied to the train tracks, as I said before. There you go. J.P. McGowan. The next Australian I want to introduce is a man by the name of Snub Pollard. Yeah. Okay, what can I say about Snub that hasn't been said enough? Harold Fraser was his original name. He was born in 1889 in North Melbourne. So he was a child actor. He toured the world with some sort of acting company. By 1915, Snub was working for S&A Film Studios. That was a film studio that made comedies, particularly Charlie Chaplin comedies. Now, Snub ended up in a Charlie Chaplin movie called By the Sea. He played a guy working in an ice cream shop. Chaplin and the other guy buy ice creams and fight over who's paying for them. So then we end up with the ice cream fight. Snub cops it in the face, some onlooker gets an ice cream in the face, and things get real pretty quick. The situation escalates. There's a lot of ass kicking and attempted strangulation, which is pretty normal in the silent comedies. He did appear in another Chaplin movie called Police. Now, Snub did heaps and heaps of movies with Harold Lloyd, who was a pretty big star. He was always playing second fiddle to Harold. Harold and Snub's final collaboration was in 1920's His Royal Slyness. Snub then went on to star in his own movies throughout the 1920s. I don't think Snub was in the league of Chaplin or Harold Lloyd or Buster Keaton, but he was a pretty good player. You can see Snub's movies on YouTube. There are some which are really good quality, so there's plenty there to see, and some of it is pretty funny. Some of his gags were very inventive, and it's just great to sort of sift through it and have a look at this guy from North Melbourne. When the sound era hit, Snub kind of just ended up appearing in small little roles in films and sometimes just walk-ons. This was quite interesting. In The Miracle on 34th Street, when you've got Santa Claus in the courtroom, they're bringing all the bags of mail in. The last man to bring in the mail was Snub. In The Day the Earth Stood Still, when the flying saucer is detected, Snub is a taxi driver, I think, listening to the events unfold while driving. Snub also had parts in Charlie Chaplin's Limelight.
Ready?
Isn't it rather late for music?
Not if we play a nocturne. Proceed with the butchery. Or make it soft, sentimental, largo.
I'll stick to beer if you don't mind.
Coming up.
Jerry Lewis, The Ladies' Man and The Errand Boy.
Hi, Bob. Saw your picture last night, Mother. It was great. Thank you, Snub.
But he had a pretty good role in Frank Capra's Pocket Full of Miracles, starring Bette Davis, where he played a character called Knuckles.
It's worse than being swept.
She's been swiping stations in the Marbury Hotel.
Yeah, for years. And writing letters to her daughter.
And in the movie Singing in the Rain, right after Gene Kelly finishes his song and his dance in the puddles, he hands his umbrella to a man. That man, Snub Pollard. And as I said, Snub was born in North Melbourne at 59 Courtney Street, and if you go to that house, you can actually see a plaque. And here on Courtney Street in North Melbourne is the house Snub Pollard was born in. It's still here, and there is a plaque on the front of the house saying that this is the home that Snub Pollard was born in. So I'm very excited about that. So the plaque on front of the house says, actor Harold Hopetown Fraser, better known as Snub Pollard, was born in this house on the 9th of November 1889, fondly remembered by the Laurel and Hardy Sons of the Desert Melbourne Night Owls tent. Snub, who was a heavy smoker all of his life, died in 1962. This man should be a national treasure. I don't know why more people don't know about Snub Pollard, but there you go. There he is. Okay, let's keep going. The next Australian was also an actor, and his name was Harry Allen. Now, Harry wasn't really a star. He just appeared in little scenes here and there and walk-ons, but he worked quite constantly throughout the 1920s, 30s, 40s. Harry was born in Melbourne in 1877 in the inner suburb of Carlton, Barclay Street to be more precise. Harry was a stage actor who married an actress called Marjorie Josephine Condon in 1910. 3 years later, he left his wife and Australia to go to America to try and get work. Harry. Okay, yeah, so he did theatre and then sort of just ended up in movies, just small roles. 1932 film Of Human Bondage, starring Leslie Howard and Bette Davis. Or was it Betty Davis? Sorry, Betty Davis. Harry appears as a taxi driver at the end. That's according to Nick Murphy of the Forgotten Australian Actors website, so that's where I got that from. Difficult to recognise him, but apparently that's Harry Allen from Melbourne.
How about a taxi, sir?
What?
How about a taxi?
The other films Barry Allen was in was Harry. Well, Harry was like the Flash, you know, one minute he was there and then he was gone. Other films, Mutiny on the Bounty, where he had a speaking role for like 20 seconds, or was it 20 seconds? Let's check.
Is that the Bounty? No, sir. That's the flagship of the fleet. There's your little point pot.
That the Bounty for Tahiti? She isn't very big, is she?
Ain't the size that counts, youngster. It's the salt in the land that matters.
These are other movies that he was in.
Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray! Hip hip! Hooray!
That's Snub Pollard in the scene. Snub's back. He also had a decent little scene at the end of Fritz Lang's Ministry of Fear, which was a pretty decent movie. Really liked that, with Ray Milland.
Why didn't you deliver Mr. Macklin's suit?
I did, Governor, just before I came here.
You must have gotten the wrong address.
No, sir. 46 Prince Consort Mansions, like it had on the box.
Harry worked up until the end of his life and died in 1951 at the age of 73. This was reported in US newspapers, but went completely unnoticed in Australia. Oh, Harry. The next Australian we're going to talk about is Robert Gregg. Robert Gregg. Or Bob. Bob was born in Melbourne in the suburb of Toorak in 1879. He was a very well-known theatre actor here. He acted with his wife, Beatrice Holloway. And so they were a well-known acting couple. So eventually Bob and Beatrice would move to the United States. Bob would get work in theatre, but Beatrice never acted again. No one knows why. So one of the big shows that Bob got was Animal Crackers with the Marx Brothers on stage, and that was not long after turned into a movie, a Marx Brothers movie. It was their second film.
You must do your best tonight. Be on your toes, men. There's an honored guest tonight. Is one of those men who are being plated by the smart head. We'll see that he gets what he deserves.
So there were some pretty funny scenes with Bob and Harpo, and as there would be.
Now what in the world are we up to? Look at this. The whole house will be torn to pieces. Absolutely. There isn't one thing. Oh, Hyde. I just know. Oh, my dear. Take it away, Hyde. Stay over here.
He also returned for another Marx Brothers movie called Horse Feathers, where he was a biology professor.
Now, let us go on with our lecture.
We should go on without your lecture.
What do you think of that slide?
Well, I think he was safe at second, but it was very close.
I think because Bob was so good as a butler in Animal Crackers that every time a movie came up and they needed a butler, Bob was the go-to guy. because he plays a butler in a lot of movies.
She has a very peculiar sense of humor.
Good morning, sir.
Oh, good morning, Burroughs.
Jacques.
Yes, madame? Yes, madame.
Where's the snake food?
Oh, get it yourself, Ambrose.
Lay off the Ambrose, will you? Why don't you shave in your room?
I'll thank you to keep your remarks to yourself, Mr. Murgatroyd.
Another good film, like a lot of good films in the 30s, Merrily We Go to Hell.
It's unbelievable. There isn't a baritone in the house.
Oh, yes, there is. I'm a baritone.
There it is. You search for happiness and all the time it's right behind the bar.
Love Me Tonight, Trouble in Paradise. And then as we got into the 1940s, there were Preston Sturges was a great film director who also wrote his films, and they're very funny, smart, funny movies like Sullivan's Travels, The Lady Eve, all movies that I have. And Unfaithfully Yours, he was in that too, which is highly recommended. Rex Harrison, it's good. So, yeah, not a film star, but very recognizable. You might even recognize him yourself, just if you watch old movies. He's in a lot of them. Bob died in 1958 at the age of 78, and his wife Beatrice in 1964. So that was Bob Gregg. Now the next one is not as happy. Okay, let's get through this together. The next Australian I want to introduce is Jocelyn Howarth. Now, Jocelyn was born in Sydney in 1911. She was discovered by an Australian director called Ken G. Hall, who put her in a film called The Squatter's Daughter.
Weren't you riding over here to protect me?
No, just to see what happens when rogues fall out.
Released in 1934, it was a very popular Australian film. She was just 22 years old, but Australia wasn't producing many films at all, so Jocelyn sailed to America to try her luck in Hollywood. Everybody felt Jocelyn was a talented young woman about to go places. But once Jocelyn got over there, she did not receive any film offers. In 1936, she tried to take her own life, which is something that was quite common in the early days. She was saved by her friend Tyrone Power, who would go on to be a famous actor. I think she tried to gas herself, but the news got out about it and people were talking about it, and it sort of gave her a bad reputation. But Jocelyn's luck changed when she secured a contract with RKO. This is around 1937. RKO, why is that hard to say? RKO convinced Jocelyn to change her name to Constance Worth. So for RKO, she did China Passage and Windjammer, both released in 1937. Not long after that, she got a role in a film called The Wages of Sin. The story of a woman lured into prostitution. Let's have a look.
Well, I'm off. If you get hungry, well, there's some tea and toast. It's all we have left to eat. And we're behind 2 weeks from the rent. But I promise you, we'll have food and rent money tomorrow.
What do you mean? Where are you going to get it?
Where are you going to get it? Did I detect an Australian accent there, Constance? It was produced by Willis Kent, a shady character who was known for making films outside the Hollywood production code. The Wages of Sin had a limited release and was never really shown in Australia. It closed pretty quick after the local authorities could act. So Constance worked as an actress, getting small roles in B films like G-Men versus the Black Dragon and The Crime Doctor. Constance did films till 1949. She died in 1963 at the age of 52 in a country that didn't really care about her, but Australia did. Wow. Okay, the next Australian is someone you may have heard of, who knows, an actor again, and his name was Errol Flynn. What happened to my beer? I think Errol must have drunk it. Errol Flynn is the first person born in Australia who became a major film star. He was a pretty big deal. Flynn was born in Battery Point, a suburb of Hobart, Tasmania, in 1909. Flynn's first film was called In the Wake of the Bounty, and he got that role because he was sitting on Bondi Beach sunbaking, and a person associated with that movie walked up to him and said, "Hey, you want to be in a movie? We're making a movie. You look great. Very handsome man. Come and be in our movie." That's how it happened. I'm sure it was that simple. That's how he got his first role in The Wake of the Bounty, directed by Charles Chauvel. Obviously, Flynn was a good-looking man, but boy, is he wooden in this movie.
Gentlemen, I will carry you and land you wherever you please. I desire none to stay with me. I have only one favor to beg. That you grant me the bounty. Make fast the foresail and leave me to run before the wind.
It has been told to me that my grandfather worked on this movie, and because he had a big booming voice, they asked him to say something like "Land Ahoy" or "Tahiti" or something, so his voice was used in the movie, I believe. And I've gone through the film and there's this scene here. So I think that's my grandfather, Roy Wheelahan. That's him there. And he knew Errol Flynn, apparently, drank at pubs with him. Yeah. So once again, I'm not sure, but I think that's my grandfather, who I never met, so I couldn't ask him. He died before I was born. So Flynn then went to England and worked for Warner Brothers in England, who made B movies. And I think he got acting lessons, hopefully. And then the producer of that studio called Warner Brothers in America and said, "I've got this guy. He's fantastic. I think he could be a movie star. You should sign him." And that's what they did.
You dance divinely, you let me do all the talking, and you beat me at golf.
Well, it's about a perfect score, I think.
And then a movie called Captain Blood was being auditioned, and they auditioned Flynn, and obviously it was the greatest audition ever because they cast him in the movie, a starring role in a big budget Hollywood movie.
Captain, Samsa! Wait! You'll not take her while I live. Then I'll take her when you're dead. Two breaches in our articles committed by you, you should be marooned. It's what I intended for you in the end. But since you prefer it this way, you muckrake, faith, I'll be humoring you.
Please watch it. It's a great movie. It's very, very old. Released in 1936, but it's fantastic. And they kept putting him in those type of movies. The Charge of the Light Brigade, also with Olivia de Havilland. They had great chemistry. That's why they kept putting him together. But, you know, Flynn felt that he was being typecast and wanted to branch out into different genres. So they gave him a film role in a movie called Green Light.
More bad news?
No, nothing really serious. Except that it's sometimes difficult to prepare oneself mentally for an operation. Sometimes a postponement can cause a harmful reaction.
Yeah, Errol Flynn as a surgeon, totally believable. Anyway, they put him back in the action movies.
How's your digestion now, Captain?
This is weird, like after that, The Prince and the Pauper, he went to Spain to be like a journalist reporting on the Spanish Civil War. The photographer with him was a German spy. Man, this man loved adventure. Anyway, he returned to Hollywood and was in The Adventures of Robin Hood.
Welcome to Sherwood, my lady.
You have some dispatches for me, Captain?
I have some dispatches for the Queen.
I'm afraid I shall have to ask you not to disturb Her Highness.
It's very thoughtful of you, my lord. But I think she'll wish to be disturbed. These dispatches bear the seal of Spain.
You won't be as lucky this time as at Panama.
So I did a real deep dive into Errol Flynn's movies. I've been watching a lot of them, and I noticed in his early movies it was very British. A British accent in these films, but as he went on, I think he just, that sort of melted away and he just sounds Australian. Even if he's in a Hollywood Western, he sounds like an Aussie, like a well-spoken Aussie.
Well, it was such a surprise seeing you up there. I mean, if things had been the other way around, you'd have...
Oh, I couldn't imagine you out there dancing the can-can.
That's a funny thought. I'd probably get mixed up in my skirts. Terry. Terry.
Yeah, CO wants his ops.
Okay. Say, did my transfer to Interceptor Command come through yet?
Haven't you heard? You're going to be sent back to Australia to that new intelligence outfit.
Huh? He is?
Yeah, going to search kangaroos' pouches for fifth columnists.
Very funny. Very funny.
All kidding aside, they're keeping you Australians in the bombers.
Keeping the Australians in the bombers? Well, if that isn't typical brass hat idiocy. The Australians are fighting men. We're not truck drivers. Oh, very well, Mr. Bones. Why are they keeping the Australians in the bombers?
So they'll always have enough sensible men along to keep them from running amok.
I see. And he sang as he sat and waited while his billy bob.
Throughout the 1940s, Errol Flynn made lots of movies, mainly with Raoul Walsh, who was a good film director. Yeah, he was in That Forsyte Woman from 1949.
Now that June knows, there's no reason why I shouldn't.
You belong to me.
I love him so.
Ooh. The old-fashioned slap. Another good film later in his career was Kim, released in 1950. It was another swashbuckling action movie. Flynn doing what he did best, adventure in exotic locations. One of Flynn's last performances was in a television show called The Golden Shanty, which you can actually watch on YouTube, the whole entire episode of his last performance, released the year that he died. So how did Errol Flynn die? Well, he was only 50 years old. Now that's young. 50 is young, okay? Flynn was on the way to the airport with his 17-year-old girlfriend. Oh, no, actually it doesn't say girlfriend, it just says friend. When he complained about pain in his back and legs, sorry about judging you, Errol. He was then taken to a doctor who treated him, told him to rest up. They later checked on him and he was dead. I think just too much drugs, alcohol and women is what got Errol Flynn in the end. But he was a great movie star. That's Errol Flynn from Tasmania. Next is Judith Anderson. Originally, Frances Margaret Anderson was born in Adelaide, then known as the Colony of South Australia because it was in 1897. She was a theatre actress performing in stage shows in Australia, New Zealand and London throughout the 1920s and 30s. By the time she got to New York on Broadway, she changed her name to Judith Anderson, and pretty much a Broadway star in a play called The Old Maid. In 1940, Alfred Hitchcock cast Judith in a film called Rebecca, along with Laurence Olivier, who had performed in London with Judith.
Do you think the dead come back and watch the living?
I don't believe it.
Sometimes. I wonder if she doesn't come back here to Manderley. Watch you and Mr. De Winter together.
So Laurence Olivier plays Mr. De Winter. Have I got that right? De Winter? And Joan Fontaine is Mrs. De Winter, and Judith is the scary housekeeper who torments Mrs. De Winter, telling her she'll never live up to the former wife, and that she should just kill herself.
You've nothing to stay for. You've nothing to live for, really, have you? Look down there. It's easy, isn't it?
Compelling stuff. Actually, I'm not joking. It is a good movie, Rebecca. And Judith is pretty good in that movie. She worked steadily through the decades in classic films like Laura in 1944. She actually did return to Australia during her career to perform for soldiers in World War II. And she's in The Ten Commandments, directed by Cecil B. DeMille. Judith was quite well known, did a lot of television work and film work.
Really, Miss Anderson, you just thrill me.
Thank you.
Thank you, really.
Still, I can't tell you what a great joy it was to act with a distinguished actor like you. I'm so very grateful to you.
Thank you, Judith, but it's I that should be grateful.
Yeah, well,
Oh, no. I'm the one who's grateful.
Believe me, no one can be more grateful than I am.
The secret word for tonight is grateful.
Big Mama, what you said about having children, it's still kind of a secret, but... Huh?
Oh, shoot, Maggie. Stop playing so dumb. I mean, is he still drinking this stuff much?
And I was amazed that she is in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock.
But, McCoy, you must now be warned. The danger to thyself is as grave as the danger to Spock.
I choose the danger. Hell of a time to ask.
What a career, Judith Anderson. Judith passed away in 1992, aged 94. All right, a bit of a change of pace. Our next Australian was a film director, and his name was John Farrow. John was born in Sydney in 1904. When he was around 16 years of age, he joined an American barquentine ship. Did I say that right? And sailed all around the South Pacific. He spent time in San Francisco, hit the oceans again, all over the course of 7 years. He eventually got to America, Hollywood in fact, where he told a lot of tall stories about where he was educated and his experiences, which were maybe true, maybe not true. Now in those days, you could get your foot in the door at Hollywood if you had some great stories, because sound had come in and Hollywood were looking for stories. They were looking for ideas. John started off doing a couple of silent movie titles. John designed those sort of things. After this, John was a fully fledged screenwriter working for different studios. His first film was in 1937. John directed movies all throughout the 1940s. Here they are. Let's see, lots of them. One of my favourite movies of his is The Big Clock. Ray Milland again, which is a great movie. I recommend if you can get your hands on The Big Clock. It's about a man who is investigating a crime, and the more he investigates that crime, the more it seems that it was him.
No, she can't add anything to our description, but she remembers his hat.
Brown felt hat with a feather in the band. Anything else? Okay, stick around till the bartender comes.
Guess we better put that on the board, huh?
Yeah.
Mr. Triton, I've asked these gentlemen to
determine whether I'm a faker or a madman. And you, sir, have been explaining that tests of an extrasensory nature are lengthy and difficult due to the mathematical computations and the possibilities of trickery.
The people are not interested in programs. We must appeal to their emotions, to their strongest instinct, hatred. Give them a scapegoat, someone to blame, someone to hate.
John did a couple of films that were connected to Australia. He directed Botany Bay in 1953 with James Mason and Alan Ladd.
Our destination, Mr. Green. 237 days. Fine passage. I shall make an entry in the log.
And The Sea Chase in 1955 with John Wayne begins in Sydney Harbour. The opening shot of the film has the Sydney Harbour Bridge in it. It's set during World War II.
And inform him personally that the weather forecast for tonight is heavy fog. Tell him I shall attempt to get out of Sydney Harbor tonight on my own responsibility, and shall so log it for his protection.
John was married to Hollywood actress Maureen O'Sullivan till his death in 1963. They had 7 kids, and one of them was Mia Farrow. Mia Farrow's dad was an Australian. So that's John Farrow, film director. Woody Allen's father-in-law. No, he wasn't. Our next Australian actor, kind of a big deal. This guy was in some pretty good movies. This was very impressive when I got into this. I did know who this man was. I had seen a couple of his films, but I've now seen more. And his name was Rod Taylor. Rod Taylor. Rod was born in 1930 in Sydney, and he got the acting bug from seeing Laurence Olivier, who was touring Australia with Richard III in 1948. Rod did work in theatre and radio. He made his Australian film debut in King of the Coral Sea.
How'd you go? What? You have to creep around like that. I'd have been down earlier, but I have to go up the police station. What'd you find?
Which is a pretty good movie. You can actually see it on the National Film and Sound Archive website. You can rent it for like a month. But it's with Chips Rafferty and Charles Tingwell. Very young Charles Tingwell. Pretty good. I really enjoyed it. So after that, he did a film called Long John Silver, which was a Hollywood production filmed around Sydney. He then won the 1954 Roller Show Australian Radio Actor of the Year, which included a ticket to London via Los Angeles. So Rod went to Los Angeles and he stayed there. He got parts. He got parts in TV shows, Studio 57. He had a nice little part in a film called Hell on Frisco Bay in 1955.
You're going downtown, Brody.
You take me, copper.
He had a small role in the movie Giant, a George Stevens epic with Rock Hudson, Elizabeth Taylor and James Dean. So yeah, he hit the ground running. They were small roles, but in really high profile films, so he was being seen. I think what really propelled him to stardom was in an episode of The Twilight Zone, which was called And Then the Sky Was Open, where he plays an astronaut who returns to Earth with 2 other astronauts, and they disappear. It's like they get erased from existence, and he becomes aware of it, and he acts his guts out in this episode. It is fantastic.
You said goodbye to us from that bed, and you said Harrington, look after Forbes. He drinks too much. Those were your exact words. And I stood right at that door, and I laughed. I swear to you, Bill. I swear to you. It happened. I know it happened.
The reason I think that was responsible because just after that, he ended up in a starring role in the George Powell movie The Time Machine in 1960, where he played George Wells, who travels into the future. It's just a classic movie, and Rod is fantastic in it.
But the time machine occupies the same space that it did a moment before it went off on its journey.
Well, if it's occupying the same space, well, why can't I feel it?
You must remember that the space you're putting your hand through is today's space. You can't put your hand into the space of tomorrow.
Oh, the space is space. It doesn't change. The same space that's here now should be here in 100 or even 1,000 years.
No, Philip. Time changes space.
And it's a film that I love. I've loved it since I was a child. Ever since I first saw it on Channel 7. In 1985, they screened it because Back to the Future had come out. So Channel 7 thought, oh yeah, let's put on the Time Machine. We've got this other Time Machine movie, yeah. That's what they did back then. So other movies that he made during the 1960s, notably The Birds, Alfred Hitchcock, who cast him in his movie about the sleepy town of Bodego Bay, suffers an unprovoked bird attack, and it's a pretty horrifying movie for the time. Tippi Hedren is also in the movie, and there's really great chemistry between her and Rod, I found. He was in the VIPs playing an Australian character alongside Maggie Smith.
You know, I think we've got our standards all mixed up somewhere today. 100 years ago, top people were top people because they were born top people. Well, you know something, love? 100 years from now, top people will be top people because they deserve to be.
Rod also appeared as an Australian in Nobody Runs Forever, which was partially filmed in Australia about an Australian. Christopher Plummer's in it. He plays a politician, but he's going over there to arrest him. It's been a while since I've watched it. I'll just show you a scene.
I have a warrant here for your arrest. It's for the murder of your first wife, free to call us, on the 2nd of, I know the date.
Throughout the 70s and 80s, Rod did a mixture of films and television. He was in the Australian movie The Picture Show Man from 1977, where he plays an American. He was also in the Australian film in the 90s called Welcome to Whoop Whoop. Rod's last appearance was in the movie Inglourious Bastards. I think that's how you say it. Rod played Winston Churchill. It's a film that gives us an alternative history of World War II. So Rod Taylor died in 2015 at the age of 84. I was quite surprised to get that news. I thought that was a bit young. I mean, 84, of course, but there's a lot of interviews you can watch on YouTube with Rod Taylor. He seemed like a really nice, down-to-earth guy. Good bloke. Now, that was going to be it, but I've had a think, and I'm going to do an honourable mention. Maybe he should be part of the Australians because, well, he was Australian. He was just born in England. That's why I didn't include him, and he didn't do a lot of Hollywood movies, which doesn't matter. So I don't know what my reasoning was, but I think I'll include Peter Finch. Sorry, I was going to leave you out, Finchy. Apologies. No, this man was Australian, alright? Peter was born in London in 1916, but immigrated to Australia in 1926. He became an actor in the early 30s, doing radio plays, stage plays, which led to films. Australian films from the 1940s, I'll just list them here for you. Maybe we'll show a clip.
He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when his day is named.
He started his own company called the Mercury Theatre Company in the 40s, which is the same name as a company that Orson Welles ran as well, same name. Hopefully that was alright. When Laurence Olivier toured Australia with his theatre company, he saw Peter acting in a play called The Imaginary Invalid. He was so impressed with Peter's performance that he actually asked him to come back to London and act with his theatre company, which he eventually did. Peter went to England and he was appearing in stage shows, he was appearing in films. He did a movie like The Wooden Horse where he was playing an Australian. I think he was the go-to Australian for British cinema. He was brought over to Hollywood to do Elephant Walk with Elizabeth Taylor. So that was a Hollywood movie. He mainly did films in England, but travelled to Australia to do films like The Shirley, A Town Like Alice, and Robbery Under Arms. But it was on The Nun Story, which was starring Audrey Hepburn, where Americans really got to know who Peter Finch was, and that was quite a successful movie. So he did movies all through the 1960s, some Hollywood, some British. My favourite, Flight of the Phoenix, with Jimmy Stewart and a bunch of other famous actors. It's a really good movie, so Flight of the Phoenix. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Yeah. All right, Mr. Towns.
Sounds reasonable.
Now, Peter was the first Australian to be nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor, and he got that nomination for the 1976 movie Network, which has a famous ending where he's saying he's mad as hell, and I'll just show the scene.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
He was nominated, he won it.
Peter Finch in Network.
But unfortunately, Peter passed away 2 months before the Academy Awards, so his wife accepted the award, Elitha Finch. So, also first actor to win an Academy Award after they died. A lot of firsts.
And he says, most of all, thanks to you, darling, for sending the right vibes the right way. And thanks to the members of the Academy Award. Thank you all.
Well, thanks for watching this incredibly long video. I hope you got something out of it. Hope you learned something about these great Australians that worked in Hollywood during the Golden Age. Maybe you knew some of them, maybe you didn't know any of them. So anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know what your thoughts are. And my next video will be similar but different. That's it. All right. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye.